Good morning, students. Today, as we continue with our lesson, that is a true story about ladybugs, let us first revise what all we have learned in the previous class. So, in yesterday's class, we have learned about the ladybugs. We have learned that ladybugs are the insect, a small insect that is red or yellow with black spots. And we also saw that there are 5,000 species of ladybugs. And not all ladybugs have the same appetite. Some ladybugs prey plant eaters and some prey the plants. So in this chapter we were talking about the ladybugs that eat the plant eaters. We also learned that there was a grandmother who loved to eat the asparagus in her every meal. And as the asparagus became costly and expensive, she decided to plant the asparagus in her garden. And after planting, she waited for 2 years. And we also have learned that when we plant the asparagus, we need to wait for 2 years for the asparagus to grow. So too, this grandmother waited impatiently for the asparagus to grow. And in the 3rd year, her asparagus came up, but she was not happy. Why? Because there was a beetle coming along with the asparagus shoots and were eating all those tasty little shoots. So she felt very frustrated and angry. Why? Because those beetles have eaten up all the new tasty shoots of her favorite vegetable asparagus. Then we have also learned that this grandmother does not believe in using pesticides to protect her garden problems. So she went to the organic farm where vegetables and fruits are grown and where only natural materials are used and not the artificial chemicals. And there her friend told her to plant all those plants which would attract the ladybugs into her garden and would eat up all those beetles that are destroying her favorite asparagus. So, in the previous class, we have learned up to here. Now, students, you can look at your book. That is page 31. Let us see what does the grandmother do after her friend's advice. She planted purple and orange cosmos, yellow yarrow, parsley, dill and tansy, and by the end of the summer there were many ladybugs visiting her garden. The ladybugs also ate the aphids on her roses. So, in these lines, the author, Rachel Carson, tells us that this grandmother, after taking the advice of her friend, she planted the purple and orange cosmos, yellow yarrow, parsley, dill, and tansy. And as a result of planting these plants, she found that ladybugs started visiting her garden. And the ladybugs also ate the aphids that were on the roses. Now here, aphids means aphids are the very small insects that are harmful to the plants. So here is a picture of aphids on roses. Aphids have a soft body of green color, and they are harmful to the plants. So students, what did the grandmother plant in her garden in order to invite the ladybugs? The grandmother planted all these flowers, all these plants in order to invite the ladybugs. And these ladybugs started doing their work, that is, eating up all the harmful insects, eating up all those insects that are destroying her plants, her asparagus. Now, in autumn, the last ladybugs of the summer burrowed down and hid in the leaves to hibernate. Here, hibernate means to spend the winter in a state like deep sleep. So here it tells us that in the autumn, when the temperature falls, the ladybugs hide themselves in the leaves to hibernate, to sleep for a long time, so that they can prepare themselves for the next spring to eat up all those beetle eggs as much as they can. They wanted to be ready to wake up and eat the asparagus beetle eggs again in the spring. Eventually, there were so few asparagus beetles that the lady got to eat all the asparagus she wanted. She even gave some to her grandchildren. Now, here, spring is a season when the plants and vegetation start to grow. So, the ladybugs went to have a long sleep in order to get ready for the spring, so that when she get up in the spring, she can eat up the asparagus beetles eggs again. So in this paragraph, we could see that the grandmother planted the plants or the flowers that invited the ladybugs in her garden, and she often found the ladybugs visiting her garden. As a result of the visit of the ladybugs to her garden, there were now very less beetles on her asparagus. So this time she got to eat all the asparagus she wanted, and she also distributed some of the asparagus to her grandchildren. Ladybugs are part of a group of insects called beneficials that help us in our gardens by eating the insects that eat our garden plants. If we choose to use pesticides. We will probably kill the helpful bugs along with the pests, but the pests usually come back faster than the helpful bugs, and then we have more pests and fewer helpers. So here the word beneficials means insects that are helpful. So these ladybugs are beneficials because they help our gardens to survive. In this chapter we saw that these ladybugs helped the grandmother by eating up all those harmful insects. And we also learned that pests comes faster when we use the pesticides than the ladybugs. So we should not use pesticides. Why? Because when we use pesticides, along with the pests, we will also kill the bugs, which are very helpful for us, very helpful for the garden to survive. And these pests come faster than the bugs. If we used pesticides, we will have more pests, that is harmful insects, and have fewer helpers, that are bugs. This way, the best way to work with nature is to make the helpful insects feel at home, and they will do the work for us. So it was the wise decision of the grandmother that she planted the plants that invited the ladybugs or the beneficials in her garden rather than using the pesticides. So this is one of the method where we can save the environment and take care of the environment, and also allow the beneficials to enter our gardens and make them feel at home, and they will help us by eating up all those harmful insects. So students, if we want to get rid of pests or the harmful insects, we should plant those plants that would invite the ladybugs in the garden, and they will help us by eating up all those pests that destroy our gardens, fruits or vegetables. So students, this is all about the chapter, and we have now completed our first section, that is a true story about the ladybugs. Now students, please go through the chapters once again, read them carefully, and you will understand them more.